Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be upcycling some ceramic pots that I got from my local charity shop. Now I got these pots as a set, there's a set of two. Now I really like the shape of them, however I wasn't keen on the design because I felt it was a little bit dated, and so that's why I'm going to give it a new lease of life. So the first thing I'm doing is adding some gesso just straight out of the pot. There's nothing added to it because the texture of the pots is quite rough, and I feel that it would the gesso would adhere quite well to that. So I'm going to give this 2 coats of gesso and leave it to dry overnight. Now this was the larger of the two pots, and as you can see, what I've done is I've actually added another layer of gesso on there, but this time it's wet, and I'm now coming in with some of the teal colour and painting that into the wet gesso so that it creates a bit of a blend, because what I'm trying to do is try and create a bit of an ombre effect with the paint, but I'm not too worried about the brush marks or anything like that because I actually want it to be have a bit of a painterly effect. So I'm just going to go around and just keep applying paint until I've got the desired effect. So once I've applied the base coat, I'm now adding some Payne's Grey to the base because I want it to be darker at the bottom. But for this I'm adding it with my finger because I want it not to blend too much with the colour underneath. Although I don't mind it blending a touch, but I want to see keep it quite dark and see some of the paint shining through areas where I miss. So I'm just going to apply it from the bottom and then work my way up. Now you can use any brand of acrylic paint. Now I'm just using paint that I've already got on hand, so it's a bit of a mixture of paints. So some of it's Atelier brands and some of it's just the local Montmartre range. So I'm continuing with adding paint to the top, but again I'm adding it with my fingers. So I'm trying to keep my fingers separate so that I've got one finger for the dark colour, one finger for the turquoise and one finger for the gesso, and I'm just trying to create a painterly blend of colours from dark through to light. And I'll just keep going around applying paint until I've got the desired effect. Now I'm not worrying too much about the holes or anything at this stage because I can come back and cut any excess paint out of those holes. I'm just making sure that I've got ample paint on there, that one, I'm not seeing the design shining through from before, and two, that we've got a good texture on there, because by applying with your finger you get actual texture appearing as well, which gives it a nice effect when it's dry. So I'm just tidying up some areas that I feel need tidying up. Now, all in all, I'm actually quite happy with how this is looking, and I'm going to now do the same thing to the smaller of the two pots. And then I'm going to leave that to dry overnight. I just want to make sure it's fully cured before I come in with the paint pens. Now that those are dry, I've moved on to the smaller pot because I wanted to try out a design I had in my mind, and I didn't want to do it on the big pot just in case I didn't like it. So what I'm doing now is I'm using some paint pens that I got from Kmart here in Australia, and I've also got some paint pens that I bought from Amazon. So you'll find a link to those in the description box below. So I'm using the same or similar colours to what I'd used previously. So I've got like a light teal colour. I didn't have Payne's Grey in the pens, so I've actually opted for a blue, and I'm also using white. So there's just the three colours, just the same as I did for the base layer. So as you can see here, I'm first of all just drawing some lines because this is going to form the basis for some little branches that I'm going on, little plants I'm going to place on the pots. So I'm just looking at and seeing where I can add the extra branches, etc. Now I apologise if my hand gets in the way. I tried filming from the other side, but because there's a window on my right side, it was too dark, so I've switched the camera to show from the right side, but as I'm right-handed, it does the design does get covered a little bit, so I need to reconfigure my room so that I can film from the left side but have the window on the left side so that you can see what I'm doing. So if it does go in the way, I apologize. So now that I've painted the stems, it's now time to add some leaves. So in the same colour, I'm just going to add the leaves across the bands of the three colours so that we get varying degrees of design. So we're going to get some good contrast in some areas, and in the middle it's going to be a bit lighter, but we will be adding some more colour in there. And there's no specific design as such, I'm just freehand drawing this and just filling in areas where I feel it needs some of the leaves. Now these paint pens are really good. They are opaque, and so the colour underneath doesn't shine through when the paint dries. So these are really good pens. So I quite like these, and considering they were quite cheap, you know, it's good value for money. Now you can get this style paint pens from Temu as well as Amazon, so I would imagine that the other cheap pens will be just as good, so you don't need to spend a lot of money getting these pens to get the desired effect. So now, starting from the bottom, I'm going to add the blue pen and I'm going to do some leaves from the bottom. Now I don't want it to go all the way up to the top of the pot, I just want it to encroach into the teal areas. Now, with hindsight, I perhaps should have done things in a slightly different order. I should have put some white down first, then the teal, and then the dark blue. Then it would layer better, because the white would then be more in the distance, with the teal being in the midground, and then the blue being in the front. But this, you live and learn as you try these experiments out. So that's my little tip for you. If you're going to do something similar, then start with putting the white on, then the teal, and then the blue. Now you don't need to be good at art to do these projects, because all this is just simple basic lines and some circles for where the leaves are going, and there's not much to it. So I'm literally just doing a circle and pulling it down to the stem. Now sorry you can't see so well there, because like I say, my I didn't think this one through when I was positioning my camera. But as you can see, it is creating quite a nice shape and design on the pot. Now I'm just going to continue this right round the edge, and as you can see, it's turned out quite well, so I'm quite pleased with that so far. So it was at this point when I switched to the white pen that I realised I should have done the white first, because then I could have done some of the teal over the top, because I wasn't too keen on the hard line that it was leaving on the end of the line. So I do come back later and add little bit of teal paint from the pen on top, just to try and blend that a little bit. But like I say, I should have done the white lines first, but you live and learn. So in the same manner that I was doing before, I'm just creating lines down into the teal area, and again I'm going to create some little plants just using the white pen. And like I say, this is a really simple design, but I think it's quite effective. I mean, it doesn't look too interesting at the moment. So I did try to blend the pen a little bit there, but because some of the other paint marks were already dry, they wouldn't blend. So I tried to put a little bit more on to see if it would blend. So you can blend it if you do it straight away, but because the other marks are dried, it wouldn't then blend in. So again, that's a little lesson. So now I've gone in with a little bit of the teal colour, and I'm just going to put that over the end of the white pen, and then just using my finger, I'm just blending that colour so that we knock it back a little bit, so it's not such a hard line. So it wasn't such a big disaster, but you know, it is lessons learned for future projects. So I'm just going to go around and do that to all the lines and then come back and add the leaves. So what I'm doing now to create the white lines, I'm actually trying to create a little bit of a teardrop shape. So to do that, I'm actually pressing quite hard with the pen up against the pot and then flicking it back towards the stem just to get that teardrop shape. And then I just go around and apply that shape all the way around. So press hard and then just flick it towards the stem, and that creates that shape. Now I'm not worried whether the teardrop actually touches the stem because it's just a representation of flowers. It doesn't have to look realistic. So I'm going to go through and do that with all of the stems. So now that I've done those plants, I now want to add a little bit more interest to the pot. So just using a light touch, I'm just adding some dots to the surface. So I do this with the white pen, the teal pen and the blue pen, just so that we get some nice contrast. But I'm starting with the light areas at the top, and then I will come down and add the teal lower down and then the blue on the bottom. So I also pull the design up into the lighter areas and then under the rim. So by applying some of the teal dots into those light areas, we're just creating the design and bringing it right up. But it also adds a little bit of interest to the upper areas also. Now with these pens, you can just tap lightly to create small dots, but if you want larger dots, you just press a little bit harder and those dots will become bigger. And then finally I wanted to bring some of the blue colour, the dark blue colour, up into the light areas, but I didn't want to add too much. So what I'm doing is I'm just adding a small dot to each of the leaves, and then that helps the leaves stand out, particularly in those teal areas where it's a little bit more blended. So it just adds a little bit more interest to it, but also brings some of that other colour up into that area so it doesn't look disjointed. All in all, I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I hope you enjoyed this video and it's given you inspiration for upcycling your own pots. If so, please give it a thumbs up, or better still, subscribe to my channel. I will be bringing you some more videos very soon. So until then, bye for now.